Hello and thank you for purchasing the Collection with Images Shopify section by qwiqode. In this video, I'll be showing you how to use it. With this section, you can add a custom collection along with filters and a custom text. To get started, let's go to the section settings. I will see multiple options. The first one is the collection source. You can select it to be custom or to be auto. So when using custom, you can choose the collection from this. Okay, so for example, I can choose this collection, but when using auto, it will be the current collection. For example, if using this on a collection template, like in here, you can select auto and it will be this collection instead of a custom one. So you have that option to use it on a collection template. Let's go back. And in this case, I'll use custom and I keep all products. Okay. Next, we have the grid settings and the first option is the columns. So by default, it's 4, but you can adjust this from 1 to 8 products. But in this case, I'm going to leave it at 3. Next, you have the horizontal gap, which is this distance between the products. So in this case, it's 20 pixels. You can increment this to make more room between them. Okay. But I'll leave it at 20 because I don't need so much space. The same with the vertical gap, which is this distance over here. So I'm going to leave it at 20 as well, but you can adjust this in case you need more room between them. Next, we have the same settings for mobile, the grid columns. You can select it to be 1, 2, or 3, the horizontal gap and the vertical gap. Next, we have the filter settings. And in this section, we have this where you can filter all the products, but you can change those labels. For example, I can change this to be our best selling products. And you will see here that the label changed. But in this case, I'm just going to leave it as best selling. So you have all these options. And in case you don't need any of them, for example, I don't want to use the price low to high. I only want to have alphabetically. So you can just remove them from here. So you clear the label and that's it. Okay. But in this case, I want to use them. So I'm going to put them back. Okay, next we have the filter styling and the first option is to display it. So by default, we'll show in this, okay? But if you don't want to use this, you can just disable it using this toggle, okay? But in this case, I'm gonna leave it enabled. Then you have the filters alignment. By default, it's on the right, but you can also align it to the left. I'm gonna leave it on the right. Next, you have the filters background color, okay? So this is for the active item. For example, if I add this, maybe we can add a color like that. So it's for that active one. If I select this, you see that background color in here. But maybe this is too dark. Maybe I can do something like that. So that's the background color. And we also have one color for the filter. So it's this text over here. Okay, so by default, this color is from your theme, but you can adjust this to add any color that you like. So I'm gonna leave it white like this and the filters to be blue. Like this. Next, we have the filters border width along with the color. So right now it's 2 pixels, but you can increment this. And the border color, maybe we can add a different color like this. So you have that option. Okay, but in this case, I'm gonna leave it as a light gray like this. Next, you have the filters border radius. By default, it's 4, but you can adjust this to control those curves. But I'm gonna leave it around here. Next, you have the filters margin bottom, and right now it's 20 pixels and this distance over here, but you can control this to add more room between the filters and the products. Okay, but right now I'm gonna leave it 20. Next, we have the filters vertical and horizontal padding. And while the margin is the outside distance, the vertical is the inside distance. For example, right now it's 10 pixels, so it's 10 pixels the text from the border of the filters. If I increment this, I'll add more room inside of it vertically. The same with the horizontal one. So if I increment this, I'm adding more room inside of it. Okay, but I don't need so much, so I'm gonna leave it 20 and 10 like this. Okay, next you have an option for custom font. So if you enable this, you can select a font from this list. Let's say we can add something like that. You have that option, but you also have a custom font family name. This is in case you're loading a custom font on your theme. Let's say you're loading a Helvetica. You'll put here that custom name, and this will show that custom font. Okay, but on this example, I don't need it, so I'm gonna leave it blank because I want to use this font. Okay, next you have the font weight, and from here you can select it to be bold, to be regular, or light. Okay, but I'm gonna leave it as default. Next, you have the filters font size, and when using 0 on both the font size and letter spacing, it's not that it will be 0 pixels, but it will be the default from your theme. Okay, but if I want to adjust it, I can use this range right here to adjust that size. Okay, but I don't need it to be so big, so maybe around 20 pixels looks fine. And the letter spacing is the horizontal distance between the characters. So right now is the default for your theme, but if you need to increment this, you can do it using this field. But right now I'm gonna leave it 0 because this looks fine for me. Then we have the same settings for mobile. We have the option to display the filters, the bottom margin, vertical and horizontal padding, font size, and letter spacing. Next, we have the filters item styling. And this is the styling of the items inside the dropdown. So when we toggle this is this styling over here. And the first option is the gap between filters. So right now it's 10 pixels between them, but you can increment this to make more room between them. But I'm gonna leave it at 10 because I don't need so much space between them. And down here we have the same option for mobile. Okay, you also have the filters background color. So right now it's this gray, but you can adjust this, maybe a white color. Okay, so you can adjust the color inside of them. Next, you have the filters item color. So it's the actual text. Okay, so right now it's this color, but you can add a different one if you like this. Okay, next you have the background color on hover. So it's this color when you put the cursor on top of it. So maybe we can choose a different color. We'll see that the background change. Okay, so that's the background color on hover, but you also have the text color on hover. Okay, so maybe we can change that, something like this. Okay, so you can change that color. Okay, but in this case, I'm gonna leave it white, like this. Next, you have the pagination settings, and the first option is the pagination type, and by default is endless. So that means it will load new items on scroll. For example, if I scroll down, you'll see that automatically those products loaded. Okay, so that's the default, but you can also select it to be pages. And when using pages, you can select the page using these buttons. You can also select it to be load more. And when using load more, it will just show a button here to trigger those new products. Okay, so if I click on it, you'll see that we loaded more products. But in this case, for this example, I'm gonna leave it as pages because I want the user to click through the different pages. Okay, and next we have the amount of products to load per page. So right now it's 8 products on load, so we'll see that amount, but maybe because we're using 3 columns, we can adjust this to be 6. Okay, so that way we have 6 products and then the user can click through them using this. Okay, so you have that option to control that amount of products to load. Next, you have the pagination alignment, and by default is center, but you can select it to be on the left, so it's right here, or to be on the right. And you also have the option for mobile, but in this case, I'm gonna leave it center, like this. Next, we have the pagination pages label, and this is only available when using pages, so we're using that right now, so we can adjust, so we can use this right here. And the first option is the previous label, so you can change that, so it's this right here, so you can change that to be previous products. Let's see. Okay, so you can add a different label to it using this field, but in this case I don't need it, so I'm just gonna leave it as previous. Okay, but you also have an option to add a custom icon to use instead of text. For example, instead of this, I want to use a previous toggle like this. We can see it if we go to the next page. So you'll see that we changed the text with that icon, and we can do the same with the next one, so maybe we can do something like that. So you have that option, but in this case I'm gonna use just the text, so I'm gonna remove those icons. Okay, next you have an option for selecting the size of that icon. For example, if I keep this, the size by default is a small one, but you can select it to be medium, large, or extra small. For example, if I choose extra large, you'll see that bigger size, but in this case we can ignore it because we're gonna use just text. Next we have the pagination pages styling, and this is only available when using page on pagination settings, which we are doing right now, so we can use this. And the first option is the pagination gap between items, so it's this distance over here. So right now it's 10 pixels, but you can increment this to give more room between those items. Okay, but maybe that's too much. I'm gonna keep it closer like this. Next we have the pagination background color, so you can choose a different color if you like using this field, so you have that option. Okay, but maybe we can keep it like this. And next we have the pagination border radius, and with this field you control the corners of the wrapper. So right now it's 4 pixels, but if you increment this, you can control those curves. Okay, but maybe that's too much. I'm gonna leave it around 10. Okay, next you have the pagination top margin, which is this distance over here between the pagination and the products. So in this case it's 10 pixels, but you can increment this to make more room between them, like this. And actually on this example, I'm gonna change the amount of products to be 3. So instead of having 2 rows, we'll see 1 row. Okay, that's easier for us to update the styling. Let's go back. Next, you have the pagination bottom margin, which is this distance over here. So you can adjust this to control that distance. Okay. Next, you have the pagination horizontal padding and vertical padding, which is the inside distance. Next, you have the pagination item color. So you can change this color over here and also change the active or the hover color. Okay. So for example, if I choose a different color, you'll see that will be this color over here. But on this example, I'm going to leave it like this with this blue. Next, you have the pagination text decoration, and by default it's none, but you can select it to be underlined like this or underline on hover, which is when you put the cursor on top of it, you'll see the line. Okay, but in this case, I'm gonna leave it as none. Okay, next we have the custom font option. So you can adjust this, enable it, and choose a font from the list. So you have that option, or to use a custom font family name, the font weight, the font size. Okay, so maybe if we make it a little bigger like this. Okay, and you can also control the letter spacing. Next, we have the same settings for mobile. You have the pagination gap between items, top and bottom margin, horizontal padding, vertical padding, font size, and letter spacing. Next, we have the load more button styling, and this is in case you're using load more on the pagination settings, you'll use these settings. So for example, if I change this and we use load more, we can choose those settings. Okay, and the first option is the button label. So maybe instead of load more, you can put see more products. So you have that option. Next, you have the button border. So right now it's 0 pixels, but you can increment this to add a border to the button. Maybe we don't see it right now because we don't have a color, but we can add a color later. Next, we have the button border radius. Right now it's 4 pixels, but you can increment this to control those curves like that. Okay, and then you have the top margin. You can use this to control the distance, and the bottom margin as well to control the outside distance. You also have the horizontal or vertical padding, and with this you control the inside distance of the button. If I increment this, I'm adding more room inside of it. The same with the vertical one, like this. Okay, and you can also add a custom font. Maybe we can add something like this. Okay, and then we can control the font size to make it bigger, like this. Maybe that's too much, like this. You also have the letter spacing option. And down here we have the options for mobile. You have the top, bottom margin, the horizontal and vertical padding, font size, and letter spacing. Okay, and down here we have the colors. And the first option is the background color. So you can update this to be a different color. And you have the text color and you have the border color. So if I add a color in here, maybe something like this, you'll see that border that we added, which is right here. Right now it's 4 pixels, but you can increment this, or just use 0 to not use any borders. Okay, but maybe we can use 2 pixels, and actually we can make the button smaller, controlling the padding like this. Let's go back. Okay, and down here we have the hover colors. So that's when you put the cursor on top of it, so you can control the background color, the text color, and the border color. Okay, so let's say on hover we want a blue border. You can choose that option. Okay, the same with the text, you can change that color, but for now we can keep it as the same color. Next, we have the section styling, and the first option is the section width, and by default the section is full width. So that means that the section expands all the way like this. Next, we have the content max width. Okay, so this is for controlling the content inside of the full width section. Okay, but in this case, by default, we're enabling real full width. So when this is enabled, the content will expand like this. Okay, but when this is disabled, the section will expand all the way, but the content will remain in here. Maybe we don't see it right now because we don't have a color, but if we add a background color to it like this and we expand it, you'll see that background color expanding all the way, but the content stays within those 1280. Okay, but if you want to keep it expanding like it was, you can just enable this and the content will stretch like this. Okay, so that's when using full width, but you also have an option for using regular width. Okay, and when using regular width, this content max width controls the whole width of the whole section. Okay, but we need to turn this off like this, and you'll see that the whole section will be 1280. If we expand this, we'll see that it doesn't stretch all the way. Okay, and if we change this, we control the width of the whole section. But on this case, I'm gonna leave it as full width and maybe with a max width around there. Okay. Next, we have the section border radius, and with this, we control the corners of the section. By default, it's 0, but if you increment this, you can control these corners over here. Next, you have the section top and bottom margin, and this is the outside distance of the section. So by default, it's 0, but you can increment this to make more room at the top and at the bottom. And next, we have the section horizontal margin, and this is only available when using regular on section width. Let me show you. If we change this to regular, you'll see that we're controlling the max width with this, right? But if we increment this on smaller screens, it will look like it's a full width section. So when using regular width, you can adjust this gap over here. So right now it's 10 pixels. Okay, but on this case, because I'm using full width, we don't need it, so we can ignore it for now. Next, we have the section top, bottom, and horizontal padding. And this is the inside distance. So right now it's 20 pixels, but you can increment this at the top and the bottom and horizontally. Next, you have the same settings for mobile. You have top, bottom, and horizontal margin, and top, bottom, and horizontal padding. Next, we have the product content styling. And the first option is the product background color. Right now it's this gray, but maybe we can do a different color like this. Okay, you also have a product border radius, so you can control the corners of the product like this. And then you have the product content alignments. By default is center, but you can select it to be on the left or on the right. And actually the background color can be the same blue like this. Okay, I'm gonna put this on center. Next we have the padding area, and by default it's all area, but you can select it to be text area only. So that means that the image is full width like this, and the padding will be applied only on the text area, or you can keep it on all area. Okay, next you have the top, bottom, and horizontal padding. So right now it's 10 pixels, but you can increment this to make more room inside of it. Next you have the same settings for mobile, text alignment, top, bottom, and horizontal padding. Next you have the product image styling, and the first option is product image dimensions. By default is square, but you can select it to be landscape, original, portrait, horizontal, or vertical like this. Okay, but on this case I'm gonna leave it square. Okay, next we have the image border radius. Right now it's 0, but you can increment this to control the corners of the image. Next you have the bottom margin. Okay, so right now it's 0, but you can increment this to make more room between the image and the text, and you also have an option for mobile. Next we have the carousel arrow styling, and these arrows are visible when a product has multiple images like this, so you can customize those arrows using these fields. Okay, and the first option is the line color. So maybe we can make them white and the background color to be blue like this, so you can adjust those colors. And you can also add a custom arrow on the left and on the right. For example, if I choose this as the previous arrow and the next arrow, we have this. Okay, and on this case we see that color because we have the background colors. Okay, cool. Okay, but on this example I don't need these ones, I want to use the default ones, so I'm gonna remove them and add a background color again. Okay, next we have the carousel arrows border radius. Right now it's 50 pixels, but if I adjust this it will look like that, but on this case I'm gonna leave them as 50. Okay, and then you have an options for controlling the distance from the edge. So right now it's 10 pixels, but if you adjust this you'll see that we're controlling this distance over here. Okay, maybe that's too much, so I'm gonna leave it around here. Okay, next we have the product title styling, and the first option is to show the product. So by default is enabled, so we can see the product title right here, but if we disable this we can hide it. Okay, but on this case we're gonna leave it enabled. Next we have an option for adjusting the wrapping of that title. So by default it's an H4, but you can select it to be H1 or H6. Okay, next you have the product title color. So right now we don't have a color, so it's the default from my theme, but if you want to add a custom color you can do it using this field. Okay, the same with the custom font, we can select a different one, something like that. You also have the custom font family name and the font weight, but this looks good for me, so I'm gonna leave it like that on default. Okay, and then we have the product title minimum height. This is in case you have different heights on the title. For example, if we have a product font size that is big like this, you'll see that in some of them is 2 lines and on some of them is just 1 line. So with this you can control that minimum height, so the price is at the same place. This is useful in case you want all of them to be the same height. Okay, so for example this is 2 lines and this is 1 line, but all of them will be this minimum height, so you can adjust this to make them the same height. But in this case I don't think we need it, so I'm gonna leave it as 0 because it will be default like this. Okay, but you have that option. Okay, next you have the top margin, so it controls this distance over here. Right now it's 10 pixels, but you can increment this to make more room at the top, the same at the bottom. Next you have the font size, okay, and the line height and the letter spacing. And with the line height we control the vertical distance between the characters. For example, right now it's 0, so that means it's the default from my theme, but if I want to control this distance over here we can use this field to make those lines closer, so you have that option. But in this case I'm gonna leave it 0 because I want to use the default one. Okay, and maybe on font size we don't need it to be so big, you can do something like this, and the bottom margin less. Okay, next we have the same styling settings for mobile. We have the minimum height, top and bottom margin, font size, line height, and letter spacing. Next we have the product price styling, and the first option is to show the product price. So right now it's enabled, but if you want to hide that product price you just disable this. Okay, but in this case I'm gonna leave it enabled. Next you have an option for showing the from price on the product. So this is in case your product has different variants on price. You can show or hide that from label using this field. In this case these products don't have different prices, so we won't see it, but in case you're using different prices you can enable or disable this. And if you have it enabled you can add a custom label for it. And next you have the text styling options for the price. Okay, so you can add a custom font or font family name, font weight, and font size and letter spacing. Okay, and you can also control the top margin using this field. Okay, so you can push it down a little bit. And down here we have the same options for mobile. We have the top margin, font size, and letter spacing. And next you have the product compare at price styling. So this is in case you have that enabled on your product. You can adjust the color of it, the font size, and the font size on mobile. Okay, and down here we have the section class, and this is for advanced users in case you're using and next we have the section class, and this is for advanced users. And down here we have the section class, and this is for advanced users. This is in case you're sharing styling between sections. You can and down here we have the section class, and this is for advanced. And down here we have section class. This is for advanced users that want to share styling between sections. You can add the class here without the dot. For example, let's say you're sharing a class between section that is called red border, like this. And if I add another section and I add the same class, red border, and I have a custom styling on my store that says that the red border will have a border of 20 pixels solid red, you'll see that both sections share the same styling. So that's for advanced users in case they need to control that styling. But in this case, I don't need it, so I'm gonna remove it. I can remove this, remove the section class from here, and actually I'm gonna hide this and remove the section class from my section. Okay, so that's for the section styling. But we also have an option for the section title. To adjust this, we can click on it. I will see multiple options. So we can adjust this and add some text on the title and the text block. And down here we have the styling settings. And the first option is the title alignment. You can select it to be on the left or to be on the right. But for now, I'm gonna leave it on the center. And then you have the same styling settings. So we have a color. So maybe we can do something like this. Add a custom font and font size, making it bigger, something like that. And down here we have the styling for the text block. So right now it's center. I'm gonna leave it like that. Maybe on color, we can choose a different one and use a custom font, maybe something like this, and adjust the font size like this. Okay, and both of them have the same styling settings for mobile. You have the top, bottom margin, font size, line height, and letter spacing. I really like how it looks, so I'm gonna save it. The button is working great, everything looks good, so that's it. Thank you again. If you have any questions or if you run into any issues, please don't hesitate to contact us via the support page on our website. Thank you and take care.